You see, due to a slight clerical error, your son has been, temporarily misplaced.
You lost our son?
Did I say lost? I said misplaced.
The 80s had a specific category of comedy that played constantly on cable, lived in the teen comedy section of every video store in America, and somehow never made it into the conversation when people talk about the decade's best films. These are the ones everyone watched and nobody remembers watching. Exactly the kind of cultural blind spot worth digging into. Sean Cunningham made Friday the 13th and then immediately followed it with Spring Break, a beach party comedy that earned $24 million on a $3.5 million budget, and Hollywood responded by deciding the man had no artistic ambition, instead of recognizing he understood commerce better than most directors working in the decade. The film follows two college students who head to Fort Lauderdale and get pulled into saving a dive bar from a corrupt developer, shot during the actual 1982 spring break season with thousands of drunk tourists wandering through scenes without realizing cameras were rolling.
Hi, sweetie. What? Are you talking to me? Yeah. Don't you think you're sexy? Oh, my God!
A horror director knows something about capturing real chaos that comedy directors often miss, because genuine unpredictability looks different than performed mayhem, and the crowd never plays to the camera when they do not know it exists, turning atmospheric authenticity into the production's most valuable asset, without adding a dollar to the budget. After Flashdance proved a radio hit could define a film's cultural footprint, the producers pushed Cunningham to match his location budget with his soundtrack budget, and the strategy worked so thoroughly that within 2 years every teen comedy in America had copied the model, even if nobody remembered Spring Break started it. The director spent the first week of class production looking for someone to replace Rob Lowe because he thought Lowe could not sell the character's reckless edge. And the irony is that Lowe's chemistry with Andrew McCarthy ended up launching the entire Brat Pack and reshaping how studios packaged young actors for the rest of the decade. The film follows Jonathan, a sheltered prep school student who falls into an affair with an older woman in Chicago, only to discover she is his roommate's mother, forcing both friends to carry a secret that poisons every conversation they have afterward.
Hey, Ace. You awake? Oh, shit!
Filming happened at a real boarding school where administrators monitored the cast to make sure nobody misbehaved. So actors playing rebellious, sex-obsessed teenagers were being supervised by actual deans, and McCarthy later said that institutional suffocation shaped his anxious, trapped performance more than any technical direction he received. The film refuses to let anyone off the hook or resolve the premise cleanly, and that refusal to provide relief separates it from every other teen sex comedy that wanted scandal without consequences. It grossed $13 million against $7 million and confirmed Lowe as bankable despite nearly losing the role in week 1, so the Brat Pack got built on chemistry that almost disappeared before anyone realized it mattered. The Hollywood Nights marked Michelle Pfeiffer's feature debut while she was secretly being controlled by an underground cult that convinced her humans didn't need food. A nightmare she didn't escape until her husband researched cults for a Moonies film and recognized the signs, turning her into one of Hollywood's most guarded actresses for the next 4 decades. The film follows a group of high school pranksters waging chaotic war to save their favorite drive-in on Halloween night, 1965. And director Floyd Mutrux captures something most nostalgia films miss: the feeling of celebrating something on the exact night it gets demolished.
What do you mean the mood's not right? What do you mean? I'm in the mood. I'm ready. I'm hot. I'm ready to go. Come on. I'm all hot in the closet. Are you kidding me?
The nights are not just causing trouble for fun, they are mourning in real time without ever stopping to announce it, and that undercurrent of loss runs through every prank without the film needing to explain why. Conservative groups protested, critics dismissed it as derivative, and audiences turned it into one of the most rented titles in the country by 1985, confirming that critical opinion matters significantly less when teenagers have unsupervised access to a VCR. Tommy Chong claims he and Cheech Marin saw almost none of the $35 million Nice Dreams earned in 1981, pointing to creative accounting by Columbia Pictures as the reason one of the most successful comedy partnerships in American film history eventually broke up over money they made, but never received. The film has the duo selling marijuana disguised as ice cream from a brightly colored truck, making a fortune until their special ingredient starts turning customers into lizards and undercover cops start closing in, forcing them to navigate mental institution breakouts and the question of what to do with drug money you cannot actually spend. The effects budget exploded. Columbia threatened to cut the entire lizard subplot, and Chong, who was directing, started covering the melting prosthetics with rapid cuts and tight lighting, turning a technical disaster into something that looked like a deliberate aesthetic choice. The Midnight Circuit loved the film for reasons the studio never understood or articulated, and the financial dispute over those missing millions became the slow fuse that ended the partnership years later, proving that making a fortune together is far easier than agreeing where it disappeared.
Amazon women on the moon.
Amazon Women on the Moon presents itself as a late-night TV broadcast of a terrible 1950s science fiction film about astronauts landing on the moon and encountering a tribe of Amazon women. The broadcast keeps getting interrupted by fake commercials, bizarre talk shows, dating service videos, and random channel surfing that lands on everything from a funeral roast to Invisible Man dating confessions. And directors John Landis and Joe Dante built the film as 21 separate sketches with no narrative connection beyond the shared premise that television had trained audiences to accept constant interruption as normal viewing.
Hi, I'm Cy Swerdlow, and I invented the patented process known as hair looming. You can sleep in it, you can shower in it. Call toll-free 1-800-GET-HAIR.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by. We are experiencing
The cast includes Arsenio Hall, Carrie Fisher, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Kelly Preston, most of whom shot their segments in single days without meeting the rest of the ensemble until the premiere. Universal spent $8 million and recouped $2 million, an outcome that makes sense when the film satirizes the exact medium audiences use to watch it, creating a marketing paradox where explaining the premise kills the joke before anyone buys a ticket.
You think I enjoyed going to bed with a worm like Fred?
Shut up, worm! Your history, Sherry! Satisfied, Ray?
The studio cut a David Alan Grier sketch from theatrical release for being too niche, and it became one of the most celebrated pieces once it appeared in the extended video version, confirming studio instincts about audiences were reliably backward. And the film found its audience at home, where channel surfing stopped being a problem and became the entire point. Crown International Pictures made Tomboy for under $2 million, with a business model where theatrical success was optional as long as video store rentals eventually covered costs. And the approach sounds reckless until you notice how many of their titles kept generating revenue, a decade after critics stopped writing about them. The film follows Tommy Boyd, a grease-covered mechanic who builds a custom race car to beat a cocky professional driver named Randy Starr, while falling for a teacher who sees past the bikini marketing to appreciate her mechanical skill. And the whole thing builds toward a final race where she has to prove her engine and her gender can both take the checkered flag. Betsy Russell spent weeks training with actual pit crews to make the mechanical work look authentic, while the marketing campaign focused exclusively on bikinis and wrenches, exposing the gap between who Crown International thought would pay for tickets and who actually showed up to rent the tape later. Video store revenue demonstrated that a female-led genre film could turn a profit if you aimed it at home audiences instead of theatrical distribution, a lesson Crown International learned years before the major studios stopped ignoring the same evidence in their own data. New World Pictures shot Night Patrol in under 3 weeks with celebrity cameos filmed in single days and actors paid in cash. And instead of disappearing into complete obscurity, it became one of the studio's most profitable home video releases of the decade. The film follows a Los Angeles cop, moonlighting as a stand-up comedian who performs with a paper bag over his head until a criminal copies the disguise to frame him. And the central problem was that Murray Langston, the actual unknown comic from The Gong Show, could not see through his costume during production, walking into equipment and missing marks, until crew members physically redirected him between takes. That accidental chaos translated into comedic energy. The film could never have manufactured through planned direction. And the fact that Langston had built a national following without anyone seeing his face inverted everything about how celebrity worked in the decade.
Stop the show! This man's the father of my baby!
Wait a minute, baby. You can't prove that.
Oh, yeah?
The $8 million box office turned him into one of the most recognized faceless performers in the country, an outcome nobody planned for, but one that captures something strange about 80s fame. Night of the Creeps earned under $1 million theatrically, and the studio saw that as proof Fred Decker could not open a movie, while the cult audience that spent 2 decades hunting bootleg tapes saw it as proof the studio had no idea what they owned. The film has college students accidentally releasing alien parasites from a frozen 1959 corpse while trying to impress a fraternity, forcing them to work with a burnt-out detective to stop the zombie infestation before the formal dance. Tom Atkins delivered the temp line, "Thrill me," with such exhaustion that the crew printed t-shirts with it before rapping. And the performance calibration in that one phrase separates great acting from desperation that happens to look great on camera. Fred Dekker loved the 50s science fiction films he was referencing without any ironic distance. And that sincerity creates the structural difference between clever homage and something that holds up 30 years later after the references have aged. The studio forced a lighter ending. The original darker version circulated underground as proof of what had been killed, and the 2009 director's cut confirmed Dekker had been right, a vindication that only required waiting 23 years.
I got good news and bad news, girls. The good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
Dan O'Bannon threatened to walk off Return of the Living Dead if the studio changed his ending. The production had already blown past its $4 million budget, and the producers decided keeping their director mattered more than a safe conclusion. So the film ends with a nuclear strike that kills every character instead of the survival arc audiences came expecting. The film has punk rockers near a cemetery getting trapped with warehouse workers after a military canister releases toxic gas, and what crawls out systematically destroys every zombie rule you thought you knew. Because these zombies run, plan attacks, communicate, and survive headshots, rendering a decade of zombie film knowledge completely useless. 20 minutes in.
There's a bunch of us trapped inside your barricade here and we can't get out of here.
First of all, mister, what the hell is going on there? I lost a dozen good men and nobody can tell me jack shit.
The concept of brain-eating zombies started here, rather than with Romero quietly rewriting the genre's entire mythology from a single low-budget production. Most studios had dismissed as derivative. The Tarman can speak and tell you exactly what it wants, transforming the threat from mindless to articulate, and O'Bannon did not direct another feature for 7 years after winning that creative fight. The cost of getting your ending past a studio that wanted something safer. Paramount Pictures released Jekyll and Hyde together again in 1982, a film about a surgeon who snorts a white powder that turns him into a gold chain-wearing disco enthusiast, and the studio approved that premise for theatrical distribution without demanding significant changes. Director Jerry Belson structures each transformation like a commercial break, interrupting the protagonist's respectable medical career, resetting the punchline every time Jekyll wakes up, and it ends up functioning as a more accurate representation of how cocaine worked in the decade than anything the government produced. Several Midwest theater chains refused to screen it because they thought it glorified drug use. Belson insisted it was a cautionary tale about losing yourself, and the image of a doctor snorting a line 3 feet long probably undercut his argument with parents. Paramount cut an entire musical subplot where the Hyde persona starts a recording career, complete with a surgical musical number, and that missing footage became cult legend, the kind of thing people whispered about and hunted through bootleg channels for years, keeping the film alive long after anyone stopped caring about the box office numbers.